Ahead, but in this class, but I'm staying up with all the other classes, but who knows what's going to happen in the future. So let's just stay a week ahead, or I'll stay a week ahead. You guys can do whatever you want. Maybe. There we go. Okay, evolution of the brain and behavior. This is chapter 6 in your text. Modern scientists see the study of the change of life over the ages due to natural selection and sexual selection as beneficial to understanding humanity from more than just its current snapshot view. And actually, that's all we see is a snapshot. Um, whoever you are. Of course, I've lived for a long time, over 70 years. I've seen a lot of changes, but even those changes don't reflect what humanity has seen over the last 2 or 3 million years. But it's just a snapshot. To pretend that all the humans are like all the humans I have known is delusional. That's not the way the world works. That's not the way that nature works. This can be done through DNA analysis, where scientists compare the DNA of one species with another. For example, we know that the DNA of chimpanzees only differs from human DNA by 1.6%. Now, you would think, well, if it's 1.6%, you don't need to really do very much analysis when we look at DNA. And the reality is, you're right. Almost all the DNA that we see, that you have and that I have, if we compared our DNA, they would be almost identical. It would be less than 1%, 1/10 of a percent would be the difference between your DNA and my DNA, despite the fact that you have your ancestry is different than mine. Um, it doesn't make any difference. Humans have almost identical DNA. And here we can see the percentage of difference in DNA. Our closest relative is the pygmy chimpanzee, also known as a bonobo. This is the common chimpanzee. It's a little bit bigger. The bonobo is relatively close to human DNA. Scientists have been toying with the idea of evolution for a couple of centuries before Charles Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace published their findings in 1958, which is kind of funny. I mean, we pick on poor Charles Darwin because he's the one that came up with evolution. The Christians pick on Charles Darwin, but the reality is that Alfred Russel Wallace came up with the same idea almost at the same time. As a matter of fact, when Darwin hadn't published, and when he found out that Wallace was going to publish, he rushed his first books into print. Wallace came up with almost identical ideas to Darwin. But now, of course, we talk about Darwin, and nobody ever mentions the name Wallace. Darwin actually published first, though he had been working on the theory for almost 30 years. And he refused to publish because he was afraid of the backlash, and that's exactly what he got. We can see Darwin figures on the backs of cars. People are upset about the fact that he came up with the idea of evolution. In 1859, Darwin published on the origin of the species by means of natural selection. Darwin made three main observations: that individuals of a given species are not identical, that some of the variation is inheritable, and not all offspring will survive. Darwin would later add a fourth corollary, that of selection. Sexual selection states that each sex exerts selective pressures on the other in terms of both anatomical and behavioral features that favor reproductive success. Hence the strange anatomical features of some creatures. And of course, I have a cardinal that is nesting right outside my window. You can see that red male cardinal coming from a mile away. He's the only thing red Actually, he's not. They did a really good job of nesting because I have a tree that, as the autumn approaches, it turns the leaves turn red. And cardinals, of course, winter in this area, so he'll be able to hide in the red leaves whenever he's in this area. Of course, he'll probably be going someplace else for his food. The peacock and the peahen. The peahen is, I don't know if you've ever seen a peahen, but there's not much to them. They look kind of like a guinea hen. But the peacock has that brilliant tail. This is a mandrill. We saw that in Jumanji, that the third Jumanji movie with Kevin Hart and The Rock. And they not only have a blue and red, this is the male, of course, blue and red face, but they also have a blue reproductive area, as interesting as that is. So, do humans participate in sexual selection? These are very attractive women from Africa. And as you can see, in order for them to be more attractive to males, they have made their lips very large. This was the practice in China for thousands of years to make a woman's feet as tiny as possible. And the way they did it was by binding them when they were children. Evidently, it's very painful, from what I understand, or from what I've read. But the smaller the feet, the more attractive the woman. I was reading a book about Chinese generals, and they were bidding for this woman's shoe so that they could drink champagne out of her shoe. And of course, it was a tiny, tiny little thing. And that was, I don't know. I'm not a Chinese general, so I don't understand the positiveness of drinking champagne out of a tiny, tiny shoe. But as you can see, this is what their feet look like. I was thinking about this summer. I have started wearing zero drop shoes. Zero drop shoes, the heel and the toe are the same at the same level. And I've also started wearing shoes that are shaped like my foot. Well, my foot is fan shaped, kind of like a duck. My toes are at the width of my toes. That's the widest portion of my shoe. Um, I can't wear Nikes; they're too narrow. And now I'm not going to wear running shoes anymore. I'm just going to wear these zero drop shoes um, because they're more comfortable to wear. And I was thinking, we do this to our feet, especially women wanting to look attractive. Those pizza-toed shoes. That it just doesn't make any sense. Why are we jamming our toes and forcing our toes to into a narrow area? I can't wear cowboy boots because the toes are pointed, and I have a big foot anyway. Anyway, we all do this just in order to look attractive. We wear shoes that are uncomfortable or shoes that don't really fit our feet. Our feet are shaped differently. Why in the world wouldn't we wear a shoe that is more similar to the shape of our foot rather than forcing our foot uh, into a into a shoe that is shaped incorrectly? Do humans participate in sexual selection? This is what the Indians of the Northwest did. Not only that, but they shaped the skull in order to be more attractive. They also did this in South America, the indigenous peoples of South America. When I was down in Peru, I saw skulls that they had dug up that had odd shapes. One was shaped like a heart, which I thought was kind of interesting. Anyway, you can do just about anything to a baby's skull. Europeans, of course, aren't uh, immune to this. Once upon a time, It was attractiveness was measured by how narrow your waist was, and you can see this in all kinds of old movies. Uh, what's the movie? Was the one made in 1939? Gone with the Wind. In Gone with the Wind, she's making her waist as small as possible. Um, they bragged about Elizabeth Taylor when she was young that she had an 18-inch waist. Around 18 inches is really tiny. That doesn't give you a whole lot of room to put your intestines in. But this is one of those things that people used to do, and they still do to some extent. I guess women wear Spanx, men wear Spanx too, in order to make themselves more attractive. Scarification. This is something that has been done in Africa for an extended length of time. Not sure this. I'm hoping this doesn't take off in the United States. There for a while, there were some fraternities that were doing this. They were scarring the symbol of their fraternity on the deltoid of the members. This is kind of interesting. This is a pygmy from Africa, and this is a Cherokee. And the Cherokee at the time were the tallest people in the United States. They were well over 6 feet tall. You can see the size of his feet. And this was a pygmy. Where the pygmies live, it's rainforest, and it's very, very close. And the people that would survive the best in that kind of an environment would be somebody that was short. And if you've ever been around pygmies, they're less than 5 feet tall. Very rarely are they over 5 feet tall. They're usually in the 4.5, 4 feet 5 inches to 4'8". I'm sorry. So really short people. This is a Maori from New Zealand. He's tattooed his face. These are women from Thailand. You can see that they have extended. These are earlobes. These aren't earrings. And this is a guy without those things. My nephew did this to his ears for some reason. I never could quite figure out why he did it, but he decided he was going to make his earlobes as big as he could. Then he decided, oh, geez, this is ugly. So he he took the loops out and allowed them to heal. But now he's got these really big earlobes, as attractive as that is. And these are the mountain women of Thailand. And as you can see, they have elongated necks. Actually don't. What they have is a depressed clavicle. And these are two other Thai women. As you can see, they have the short neck. This is kind of interesting. These are the Maasai of Africa. Um, they they're relatively tall and slender anyway, but in order for them to attract females, in order for the females to be attracted to them, they bounce up and down. Now the reason they do this is so that they can see their cattle. They're cattle herders, and that's what the stick's all about. They're cattle herders. Sometimes these are spears that they carry around, but they're trying to make sure that their cattle are safe. And they do this by bouncing up and down so that they can see over the horizon or see over the hill or see over the trees. And the one that can bounce the highest is considered the most attractive. And these are men from a sub-Saharan tribe. In order for them to be attractive to women, they have to be able to move their eyes independently of one another. That's why that is. I No one's quite sure, but that's what they do. They also paint their faces, as you can plainly see. And of course, who knows? This is a woman, actually. That's a lot of piercings. And that's another woman, and that's a lot of piercings. Not exactly sure what that has to do with, or why that is that much more attractive. Understanding the phylogeny of species allows us to study the behavioral and neural adaptations that allowed animals to exploit particular ecological niches. Comparative studies may focus on specific differences between closely related species or may be concerned with general principles across larger numbers of species. But in each case, the use of an evolutionary framework provides additional exploratory, explanatory power. Okay, so this is us. This is humans. We are animals. Have a chordata. We have a spinal cord. We have hair, so we're mammals. We are in the primate. We are Pongidae and Pantroglodyte. That's not us. That's chimpanzees, Pantroglodytes. Okay. Pongidae. Oh, here we are, Hominidae. And this is us, Homo sapien. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's the Pantroglodytes, common chimpanzee. Paniscus is the bonobo. And gorilla is the gorilla, of course. At least we're not the Rattus norvegicus, which is the giant Norway rat. The principles of neural function revealed by comparative anatomy studies may often be generalized to many species, including humans. The major divisions of the brain are shared by all vertebrates. Brain differences between species of vertebrates can often be directly related to their ecology and behavioral complexity. Such differences tend to be quantitative in nature. Relative size of brain regions or the size of the neurons is a good example. The field of classifying animals is known as taxonomy. Taxonomy is an ongoing endeavor. Taxonomy can be done in many ways, including paleontology, by studying fossil remains, comparing the animal DNA with human DNA, putting paleontological information with DNA analysis in a study called convergent evolution. So we can look at the past and we can look at the present. Two of the fastest swimmers in the ocean are tuna and dolphins. Each evolved for efficient swimming, and so there are similarities in their structure. However, the dolphin is a mammal and the tuna is a fish. Similar features due to convergent evolution is called homoplasy, similar development. Homology, study of similarities, looks at similarities between body structures of animals with common ancestry. A good example of a homology is the forelimb of several mammals. Outwardly, they seem so different, but the structure is very similar. Analogy refers to two structures that have similar functions. And here we see the human arm. Here we see the dog's foreleg. So their hand would be their foot, and the wrist would be up inside the leg. This is a seal's flipper, and this is a bat's wing. All the same structures for all of these different mammals. They're just in a different place. Classification of species begins in general terms and runs to more and more specific. Kingdom is the most general term. Living creatures are broken into 5 kingdoms: Animalia, Plantae, Fungi, Monera, which is bacteria, and Protista, which is single cell. The main subdivision of a kingdom is a phylum. 3 phyla are Chordata, Mollusca, and Arthropoda, and we are chordatas, of course. The main subdivision of a phylum is class. Some classes within the phylum: Chordata, Mammalia, Aves, and Reptilia. And Mammalia, of course, are us. We have hair, and we feed our young with milk. That's what Mammalia has to do with. Aves is birds. and reptilia is reptiles. The main subdivision of a class is an order. Some orders within the class Mammalia, Carnivora, Herbivora, and Primates. And of course, we are primates as humans. Carnivora has to do with people that have to do with creatures that eat meat, and herbivora are creatures that eat plants. The main subdivision of the order is the families such as Canidae and Felidae. The main subdivision of a family is the genus, such as Canis and Vulpes. We're talking about Canidae are dogs and Felidae are cats. The main subdivision of a family is the genus, such as Canis and Vulpes. Canis is wolves, and Vulpes is foxes. The main subdivision of a genus is the species, such as Canis familiaris, and Canis familiaris is the domestic dog. Domestic dog. This is domestic dogs. Canis familiaris. While Darwin's theory was widely accepted, no one really knew or understood how change took place until biologist Hugo de Vries. Working with primroses, de Vries proved that sudden changes are caused spontaneously by mutations, and that's how we were able to get the ruby red grapefruit. I can remember eating ruby red grapefruit when I was young, and you could never find one without seeds. Now they don't have seeds. They've developed a seedless ruby red grapefruit. Genetic studies subsequently demonstrated that chromosomes provided the building blocks of inheritance. Later, genes were identified as the building blocks of chromosomes. Watson and Crick demonstrated that DNA was arranged in a double helix made up of nucleic acid. And this is Watson and this is Crick. And that is what DNA looks like. You get half your chromosomes from one side of your family and half from the other side of the family. Today, the Modern Genome Project gives us an ever-expanding view of the makeup of humans as compared to other creatures. Researchers have determined that species who have to hunt for their food, such as humans and carnivores, have bigger brains than animals who don't have to search for their food, such as ungulates. And ungulates, of course, would be this white-tailed deer. And here are two carnivores. She's got bacon and eggs, I see, and orange juice and muffins. The more novel the means of obtaining food, the larger the forebrain of the animal. Magpies have been known to dig up potatoes. House sparrows have been seen picking the insects from car radiator grills. Crows have been known to drop rock-hard palm nuts in front of cars that run over them and open them. And this is a crow, a house sparrow, and a magpie. Birds who store food will have a larger hippocampus than birds who don't. The hippocampus is necessary for memory, thus a larger one is needed for those species that rely on memory for survival. The acorn woodpecker, this is an acorn woodpecker, Clark's nutcracker, and the black-capped chickadee. I'm sorry, this is the black-capped chickadee, and this is the Clark's nutcracker. The pickier the eater, the bigger the brain. The differences between the brains of humans and the brains of other mammals are mostly quantitative. Rats and humans are similar in that each has a brain that represents about 2% of their total body weight. The basic differences have mostly to do with the size of the cerebrum of the human and the prominent increase in surface due to the gyri and sulci. And there we go. There's the difference between the rat's brain and the human brain. As you can see, lots and lots of gyri and sulci in the human brain and none in the rat. But all the other structures are there. It's just the gyri and the sulci. Rats don't miss out completely. They have a much larger olfactory bulb than humans, and so have a much stronger sense of smell. The nervous system of vertebrates have several similarities. They develop from a hollow dorsal neural tube. They show bilateral symmetry. Segmentation is present. Pairs of spinal nerves extend from each level of the spinal cord. The central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system are separate. Localization is present. Certain functions are controlled by certain locations in the central nervous system. Anthropologists and comparative biologists assume that all vertebrates have these features in common because they descended from a common ancestor. Invertebrates are another story. There are 17 phyla to cover the invertebrates, while vertebrates are part of one. It has been estimated that for every human on Earth, there are over 1 billion insects. The basic plan, all vertebrates and most invertebrates share a basic plan that consists of a central nervous system and a peripheral nervous system. And this, of course, is a grasshopper. There's the tiny little brain. Here's the human. There's the tiny little brain. Oh, no, it's massive. And so you can see that they're very similar, the nervous systems. All vertebrates and many invertebrates, including mollusks and insects, have brains. The general evolutionary trend in both vertebrates and invertebrates is toward increasing brain control over ganglia at lower levels of the body. Axons of mammalians, neurons, are surrounded by myelin, which helps them conduct impulses faster. Invertebrates have no myelin to speed nerve conduction. If we look at present creatures and their fossilized ancestors, we can see that the brain has changed over time, whether it is a bird's brain or a hominid brain. Making a cast of the inside of a skull to map the brain is referred to as an endocast. And these are the ones that were known at that time. We've actually expanded our ancestry to include more creatures, more structures, more hominid structures. And there we go. The human with the largest brain right here, Neanderthal man, as you can see, had a much bigger brain than we have, modern man. Tree shrew, lemur, rhesus monkey, and humans. Total brain volume. And that is the end of the chapter. So I'll talk to you guys next week.